And so, all right, so we're going to talk about another application of psychology, right? Another way that psychology is applied to help understand, applied to solve world problems and understand stuff. So we're going to start with stress a little bit, because first thing we got to remember is stress is not necessarily a bad thing, okay? Stress is not bad. If you did not have any stress in your life, why would you get out of bed in the morning, okay? Stress provides motivation for us. So number one, it's not necessarily bad, okay? So let's look at stress, because stress is the process itself. A stressor is something in your environment, okay? And what happens is stressors can be things like poverty, something dramatic, a test you have to take, even if you interpret it this way, being in an airplane. An appraisal, however, is incredibly important. Appraisals, and we're going to come back to this when we talk about mental disorders, right? And clearly appraisal is a big deal because everybody gets an exam. Some people look at the exam in front of them and go, I can do this. This is something I can handle. And some of them get overwhelmed by it and say, this is going to kick my ass. And so it's not the event itself that is inherently stressful, right? It is your appraisal of it. Okay? So appraisal is incredibly important. And then so the stress reaction is the emotional, physical responses like rapid heartbeat, cortisol levels, perhaps crying, depending on what your outcomes are. Okay? So if there is a stressor in our environment, we have to have an appraisal. Number one, is this thing a challenge, something that allows me to show what I'm capable, or is this a threat to me? Is this something that's going to potentially harm me? Okay? So if you view the stressor as a challenge, great, go for it, use it. If you view it as a threat, then what's going to happen, you have to make a second appraisal. Do I have the ability to deal with this thing? Do I have options? Do I have tools to help me get past it? Okay? And if we say, I don't think I do, this is where stress will lead to illness. Okay? Stress and illness are highly related, but only this pathway is where the illness is related. Not here, not here. That's all just fine. Okay? So, like we said, a brief experience of stress is good for us. It motivates us, gives us priorities. Sometimes, you're sitting there, you got so many different things in your mind, and then you realize that you got an exam on Monday, and you're like, oh shit, okay, that all of a sudden I got it, okay. It's going to move me in the direction I need to go in, but it's this extreme or prolonged stress, okay, that becomes a problem. And we're going to talk about immune system damage, heart disease, all kinds of different other health problems that can result from long stress. Okay? And look at that. A life without stress would be extremely boring. I mean, you have to have it, otherwise there's no point. There's no point to life. Okay? And so when we talk about stress, they often make reference to eustress and distress. Eustress is the good stuff. This is a point where we're motivated. And look at this is performance. And so if you raise the level of stress in your environment to a certain key point, your performance increases. But as soon as you pass this and you have more and more and more, then all of a sudden, down goes your performance. So having more stress up to a certain point is good. But past that point, then all of a sudden it has the opposite effect. Okay? So very interesting, and in fact, they've done this study with people playing pool, and it turns out that this is a somewhat complicated picture because they took people that were experts at playing pool, right? They're really good. They give them an audience, okay? So presumably, what an audience does is raises stress levels, okay? With an audience, a professional gets better, right? Now you take somebody who's not a professional and you give them an audience, and their performance gets worse, right? So it's kind of a little bit complicated, But the effect of stress, or in this case an audience, just really depends on, are you an expert or not, right? Are you good at it? Okay? So a lot of athletes actually say that they perform better during actual competition because the arousal created by the audience raises their performance. And in fact, I don't really watch these things, but my understanding in basketball, that one of the key tricks that the audience can do is if the opposing team is trying to shoot a free throw, then everybody starts freaking behind the basketball post, right? Attempting to raise the stress level of that basketball player over to there. And so that's kind of what the audience is trying to do, is cross over that key point. So when we're under stress, we exhibit this thing called the fight or flight response. Okay? And we saw this earlier when we talked about biology a little bit. But what happens is the physiological response to a stressor. And so our pupils will dilate. And the key is fight or flight. In our ancestral past, we were faced with what we call an acute stressor. Let's say, for example, a bear. Okay, what's going to happen? Okay, your body's like, oh shit, I need to get ready to either fight or run away from this stressful thing. Okay? Fight or flight. And so what's going to happen is your body is going to perform a variety of physiological responses to get you ready for this act of fighting or running away. So number one, your pupils are going to open up. Okay? That's to gain more information so you can see a larger part of the scene. Your heart rate is going to increase because if you are going to either fight or run away, your muscles need oxygen. How are they going to get oxygen? Blood flow. Okay? Blood goes there, gets the oxygen, gets you the energy. The muscles will tense up in anticipation of activity. You're going to start to breathe more, and your bronchial tubes are going to dilate. Again, working in tandem with heart rate so that you can get more oxygen out there. Going to start to perspire, because if you're about to fight or run away, your body is probably going to just about be producing a lot of body heat that needs to be eliminated. How do we get rid of body heat? Perspiration. So all of a sudden the body's getting ready for the bear. Got it? This fight or flight response. And this fight or flight response was excellent as long as it was something like a bear. Okay? The bear's gone, sweet, and then back down to normal. But what happens is in the modern world, stressors tend not to be acute in this way. Acute, as in they occur and then they're gone. Okay? Instead, we have chronic stressors. We have things that just kind of go on and on and on. I mean, chronics, it's just driving to work in the morning, dealing, oh my God. But the problem is the body responds to chronic stress in the way that it used to for acute stress. And so what happens is people are in this fight or flight mode like all the time. Okay? It's supposed to be fight or flight, deal with the problem, return to back to normal. But no, this is what's happening, fight or flight all day long. The fight or flight response is expensive. It takes a lot of energy to make this stuff happen. Okay? So what happens is that because the body's in fight or flight, and in fact it's not on here, but there are other things that are going to happen during fight or flight response, like your digestive system is going to shut down. It's like, what's more important, dealing with a bear or digesting a sandwich? Seems pretty straightforward, right? Oh, and you know what else shuts down? Is your immune system, right? During fight or flight. You got to deal with a bear. You need to bring every single piece of resource that you have, okay? You can't waste it. And so what happens is, if you're in a chronic state of fight or flight, your immune system shuts down. Oh shit, okay? They've done some studies where they took, these were dental students, and I don't know how they got people to volunteer, but they gave them a puncture wound right in the middle of their hand, okay? And then they measured how many days for that to heal, right? So a measure of the immune system's functioning. They did it either during the middle of the semester or during exam week, all right? During exam week, when assuming there's a lot of stress in their lives, and it took significantly longer to heal if it's during exam week. There's a lot of stress, the immune system isn't functioning. If you're under chronic stress, your immune system is chronically not functioning. Okay? So Hans Selye made a graphical representation about what he called the general adaptation syndrome, but the body's reaction to stress. Okay? So if we have a dashed line here, it's sort of like the body's ability to resist stress. What's going to happen is if a stressor, a chronic stressor begins, right up front there's going to be a drop. Your ability to deal with the stress is going to decrease. But very, very quickly, all the body, the body's going to take it and it's going to pull the glycogen out of the liver, turn it to glucose, make energy. I mean, all kinds of, it's going to pull out all of its reserves. And now all of a sudden, look at this, an increased ability to resist the stress for a while. But at some point, you run out of resources to pull from anymore. There's nothing else to pull. And you collapse. Okay? So there was one absolutely tragic case a couple of years ago that just exemplified this. There was a mentally retarded woman, and she was receiving Social Security payments. Now, two brothers living in a mobile home, they make friends with her. Okay? They kidnapped her, they locked her up in their trailer, and they were cashing her Social Security checks, right? And so she's chained up in this trailer, and apparently every day they were spitting on her, they were burning her with cigarettes. I mean, these are just the scum of the earth, people. And just day after day. So one day, dead. And it was like, the coroner comes in, does an autopsy, what's the cause of death, and like, well, she's got burns all over her body, but none of that would have done anything. She's got broken bones, but that wouldn't have done it. And in the end, the only answer is she ran out of resources. Her immune system stopped working. She just had nothing left. Okay? So if you're in this situation for too long, it's just over. There just is no more to draw from. Okay? Stressors. Oh yeah, there are different categories of stressors. Some things everybody agrees are stressors, like catastrophes. But some of the ones that are real chronic are things like low social status. I'm going to tell you what, it sucks to be poor. Poor people die earlier than rich people. Partly because rich people can access better health care. But partly, the stress of being poor leads a poor person to have chronic levels of immune suppression. Okay? So, yeah, if you're living your whole life with your immune system running at half speed, I'm not surprised you die younger. All right? It doesn't shock me in the slightest. So, there's so much more, though. Powerlessness, all right? Having no control over our lives. In fact, in one study, they did this really interesting. They went to a nursing home, okay? And in one nursing home, they left it standard. It's a control condition. It's the way it is all the time for everybody. And in the other nursing home, they gave the patients the ability to make decisions on their own. See, in most nursing homes, they take care of everything, okay? They say dinner's going to be at this time, the menu's going to be, the television time is between this time and this time. But in the suburb, they made their own choices, right? There's a plant, all right? And in fact, they even in the one group, they gave them a plant, but the nurses were in charge of watering the plant. And in the other one, they were in charge of watering their own plant, right? They could choose what was for dinner, when dinner time was, etc. By all measures, the people in the nursing home where they made their own choices were healthier. They had longer lifespans, fewer symptoms, fewer doctor visits across the board. That having an inability to control the world around you is inherently a stressful thing. Okay? So, yeah. However, one of the most interesting ones was this, the social readjustment something scale. I can't remember. What is it called again? The SRSS. I don't even remember. There it is. Social readjustment rating scale. And so the social readjustment rating scale felt that the better way to measure stress was to look at events in your life, to recognize that stress can be both positive and negative. Okay? So losing a spouse is a very stressful event. But getting married is also a very stressful event. So it doesn't have to be good necessarily versus bad necessarily. And then it'll impact health. So they created what was called, well, this stress scale. Okay? And so they asked people, you know, in the last year, did this happen to you? Death of a close family member, person. They would ask them, did these things happen in the last year? And if this thing did in fact happen in the last year, you get 26 points. Okay? So they just went through all of these different life events and gave you a number. And then it turned out that the higher the number, the lower the health. It was just absolutely connected like this. One goes up, the other goes down. Okay? It was a powerful relationship. About 8 years ago, some students and I took this idea and we actually we brought it up to date a little bit, because this was from the 60s, but we also made it relevant to students. And we included certain things like Blackboard doesn't work, or lost a cell phone, all right? Losing a cell phone is pretty damn stressful, right? Guarantee you it's not on there, okay? So we added a bunch of much more modern stuff, and then we related it to self-control measures. And absolutely, when people were under a lot of stress, as measured by our Wesleyan stress scale, imitating this, they just were not exhibiting self-regulatory behaviors. So pretty powerful finding. And studying stress. This is actually pretty cool. Look at that. They're going to chew bubble gum, collect saliva. Okay? Then in that saliva, they're going to measure cortisol. Cortisol is a hormone that is released during times of stress. So cortisol levels in the blood, or in this case in the saliva, will be a measure of stress. Then they're going to give them a job interview in front of a critical panel. Oh my God, do some difficult math problems. All right, no stress at all. Measure cortisol again. Okay, and so look at that. You can literally see the change in cortisol levels with the enhancement of stress. I actually saw one research study that was fascinating, and I don't know how they did this, but they were looking at animal shelters, okay? And at some animal shelters, you've got the dogs in one room and the cats in another. But some animal shelters don't really have a lot of resources, and so the dogs and the cats are caged together. I mean, not together, but you know what I mean, same room. And they checked about how stressful it was for the cats to be in the same room with the dogs. All right, it was crazy. They measured, I don't know how they did it, but they somehow got the cat's urine. I don't know how you get cat pee. I don't know how you got it. But they were able to measure the cortisol level in cat pee, and they found that cats that were in the same room with dogs were significantly more stressed out. It was pretty cool finding. Pretty cool. So, I like it. Oh yeah, you know what happens is not just if you have prolonged stress, your immune system shuts down, but you literally get old faster. It turns out that on the ends of your chromosomes, okay, the tips of the chromosomes are called telomeres. Every time a cell replicates itself, the telomeres on the end get a little bit shorter. Okay? But the telomeres are just dead space. They don't do anything. Right? They have no purpose, apparently no purpose. And what happens is that if you're under a lot of stress, these telomeres start to shrink faster. And eventually, as these telomeres shrink, they eventually start to dig into some actual material that actually codes for important stuff. All right? And so this is considered to be one of the most potential breakthrough ways. If you want to talk about ways to increase the human lifespan, it's going to be things that we can do to influence the telomeres on our DNA. So pretty powerful stuff. And so you literally get older faster if you're under a lot of stress. Actual literal changes are occurring. Cortisol, yeah. Oh, and then, yeah, right here. What do I have? Oh, I have it right there. All right, so here, for example, what happens is if you're in a chronic state of fight or flight, remember what's going to happen is your heartbeat is going to pump, right? But you know what's going to happen is the blood is going to pool up in your arms and your legs. Because if you're going to fight or run away from a bear, you're going to be using these muscles to get the job done. Okay? This is really where you not just need more oxygen than the muscles. You need them right here. And so what happens is the blood tends to stop right at the arms and the legs, and there's not enough here in the heart to clean out the cholesterol. You know, the cholesterol is not a bad thing as long as your blood circulates it and moves it. But when there's not enough blood flow at the level of the heart, because it's all down in the arms and legs, it starts to build up. And so all of a sudden what happened was chronic, what am I trying to say? Coronary disease. If you go back to the 1800s, basically nobody died of coronary disease. Nobody died of heart disease. Close to zero. Okay? Now you move forward and it's like the most common cause of death. So how did it go from essentially non-existent? Because the world that we have created has created chronic stress. That is why. We have created a world where there is stress occurring 100% of the time. Here was another cool study. This one was, oh my God, this one was in, I got to hear this guy talk. What was his name again? Cohen, yeah. This was in Pittsburgh, and he got people to volunteer, and I'm going to be very careful when I say volunteer. So he got people to volunteer for his research study. And here's the deal. It's like, okay, we're going to pay you $500. We're going to put you up in a hotel. We're going to give you nice meals, okay? And but here's the catch. The day you walk into the study, we're going to take cold virus, put it on a swab, rub it up your nose, and then every day while you're here, we're going to measure mucus production, okay? A measure of how sick you are, okay? Which would be a side effect of how your immune system is functioning. And every time I think about that study, it makes me think of the word volunteer. Because I guarantee you, I lived in Pittsburgh, and the homeless population in Pittsburgh was pretty damn bad. And I can pretty much guarantee you who volunteered to be in this study. Who else would volunteer $500? Now you're going to be trapped in a room, and we're going to measure your snot for a week. I don't know. It beats raising children, I guess. So what he did, and he did actually a variety of these. He found in this particular one that those people that they were measuring levels of stress, and it was just pretty straightforward. People without a stressor ended up with fewer colds after shoving it, your immune system kicked it out. In another one, it wasn't just colds, yes or no, but literally how much was coming out. But he also, in another study, did one where while the people were in his study, he found a way to quantify how much social interaction they were having with the other people. And he found the more social interaction you have, the lower or the less mucus produced. So it's an interesting idea that social support somehow alleviates stress, therefore improves the immune system, therefore less mucus production. It's pretty cool stuff. Okay. So what we find is, again, I cannot overemphasize how important that word appraisal is. That, here's the thing that goes like this: shit happens to everyone, okay? Shit happens. And in most cases, it's up to you to decide what to do with it, okay? You appraise it. Is this something, some people get, you have a group project to do, and they're like, oh, God, God. My department, we just had to do a self-study audit, okay? The damn thing is broken. It's just, and you're just looking at it on his face going, WTF. Right? And at first when I looked at it, it was just overwhelming to me. But then I thought about it a little bit, and I go, you know what? Really, though it is overwhelming if you look at the entire thing, it is composed of discrete parts. and we can break those parts up and turn them into manageable pieces. Okay? And so all of a sudden, the appraisal of a massive project became incredibly manageable, just like that. Okay? So, very good plan. Now, we find that this appraisal process is somewhat predictable. Okay? There are types of people, for what it's worth. There are type A people. Do you know who type A people are? They're hard-driven, they're aggressive, they're my wife. Okay? Type A people, I mean, it's like, oh my God, if my wife does not get the correct change at the grocery store, holy shit! And I'm just like, let it go. It was 50 cents, all right? If you want the 50 cents, calmly go over to customer service and get your money back, you know. All right? That's me, all right? To me, anything that looks like a huge tragedy at a moment, I'm just gonna say that's just a speed bump on the road of life. Okay? The moment you went over that speed bump, it felt like a huge deal, didn't it? Boom. Oh, within 5 seconds, did you even remember you went over the speed bump? It's like that's what you're facing here. Why are you freaking out over something that inevitably, I always tell them, I don't know what the solution is going to be. Maybe it'll be good, maybe it'll be bad, but I feel very confident that we're going to get through this. I mean, look to the past, look at the things that we've overcome, and even when they seemed overwhelming, we did it just fine, so why not now? You know? So I'm much more of a type B person. Laid back, relaxed, go with the flow. Type A people are verbally aggressive. They're impatient. They need to get things done. I mean, it's like, even, one of the things I study is decision making, right? And so type A people, you know what they do? They just keep trying to get the best solution to a problem, okay? Just keep on working. A type B person says, you know what? That's a pretty good solution. I'll just do that, okay? And this emerges when we need to choose a movie to watch. My wife insists on checking every single thing, just in case there's a better one. How about this one? That's good enough. How about this one? That's good enough. Who just said the other one's good enough? They're all good enough. Okay, I'm just fine. BTW, who do you think is happier in life? Type A or type B people?
Type B.
Oh yeah, big time. Not only that, they did a study where they categorized people into type A and type B, and then they followed up on them across a 5-year period, and heart attacks only happened in type A people. I mean, that was an extreme, but it's not out of it, okay? Anger comes out of it, things of this nature. Okay. But here is a classic study Martin Seligman did. And this is a big deal because it's going to form the basis for our understanding of clinical depression. All right? What happens in this study is he's got a dog. See the puppy? Puppy's in a box. Okay? And so what happens is this puppy's in the box, this light comes on, 20 seconds later the floor goes and the puppy gets shocked. Okay? Sucks to be the puppy. But what happens is, if the dog, within that 20 seconds, jumps over this little barricade, no shock, no problem. Okay? So you do this, and, the puppy gets shocked the first, 10, 20 times, but figures out pretty quick. And then pretty soon what's going to happen is the light goes on, and the puppy just stands there, doesn't even seem to notice the light, and then at some point just casually steps over the barricade. Okay? Simple. Now, a second condition, just like this, except what happens at the beginning is this puppy is tied up in here and cannot get out. They experience a couple of uncontrolled shocks, okay? Then they untie the puppy. Now, the puppy can solve the problem, same as the first one could. This puppy never solves the problem. This puppy, when this light comes on, the tail drops, the ears droop, and you can just see the dog on the fuck. All right, you can just see it. He's just like, I'm about to get hit. All right, and it just quits, just gives up. And so he calls this thing learned helplessness. After you have failed, you just learn, not just you learn to fail here, but you just give up trying anywhere else. Okay? You just quit. Why bother? I tried, I failed, so what's the point? Okay? What's the point of trying anymore? And so this learned helplessness, as I say, becomes the key to helping us understand clinical depression. Because often in clinical depression, if somebody does in fact try and fail, and then generalizes that failure to other situations and say, why bother trying? Because I'm going to fail. All right? It's like, it doesn't work. So, oh, here's another cool one. These poor little mice. Oh, rats. They are rats. Okay. These little rats. Here's what's going to happen. You've got an executive rat, a subordinate rat, and a control rat. Okay? So here's the deal. This thing is going to be, if memory serves, they're going to, at random intervals, these rats are going to get shocked. Okay? These two rats are going to get shocked. This one, nothing. Shock, shock, shock. Okay? This rat, when the shock comes on, can press a lever to turn the shock off. Okay? And as soon as this guy turns the shock off, so does this guy. Okay? So these two rats experience exactly the same amount of shock. Exactly the same frequency, everything. But this dude is in charge of turning off the shock. Okay? What they found was that this rat had severe health problems. This one did not. And it was like they got the exact same shock, but this one was in control of it. Okay? So it's not bad stuff happening to you that's the thing, it's the inability to control the bad stuff that's happening to you. Okay? That was interesting. British civil service workers in executive positions live longer than those in clerical positions. The ones that have the power, the ones that have to simply sit and take it. Huh? We find, in fact, I already said this, but high economic status predicts lower risk of heart and respiratory diseases. Okay? And what they did is they went, one group went to Scotland and they looked at all the gravestones and they measured how tall they were. And that was a reflection of how rich a person was, because gravestones are expensive. Did you ever buy a gravestone? I have. All right. It is literally in the middle of a field in Korea, believe it or not. In the middle of Korea, I paid for a huge granite marker for my father-in-law, and it was crazy as hell. By the way, the last time I went to Korea, my brother-in-law, they took me out. We got to worship. We got to do ceremonies for my father-in-law. And I get out to this huge monument, and there's all kinds of inscriptions on it with Chinese on it. And I'm like, that's that's your wife. And there's my name in English written on a granite monument in the middle of. It's literally, you park on the road, you go through somebody's farm. All right, you go up onto a hill, and we had to wave dry fish around and drink soju, and it was a good time. That was a hell of a drive. Okay. So they measured these gravestones, and what they found was the higher the gravestone, presumably the richer the person, and the richer they were, the longer they lived. Right? They could literally look at birth and death data. And so it's pretty straightforward. Poor people tend to die earlier, and like I said, partly it's access to health care. But look at this, even in primates, they have a social hierarchy in monkeys, right? And it turns out those at the bottom of the social hierarchy have the shortest lifespan. As you move your way up the hierarchy, presumably, the higher you get, the more access to resources you have, the more choices they make, the longer they live. So, it's pretty powerful. So we can say it sucks to be poor. And that's the truth. Y'all know I'm talking about it sucks to be poor. But you know what really sucks? Being poor when there are rich people around you. That would piss you off, okay? When I was in college, I lived in these townhouses. There was a lumber mill, right? There was a river right there, and there was a lumber mill. The trees would come from the upriver. And there was this townhouse, a whole long row, so half a mile long. They were built for the workers. Okay? They were what they were. The owner of the lumber mill, then says, I'm going to build my mansion on the top of the hill here overlooking the river so I can see everything. Halfway through building this thing, the workers told the owner, if you sleep in that house for even one night, we will burn it down. Okay? We will burn it down. Because it sucks to be poor, but it really sucks to be poor when the rich dude is on the hill looking at you. Okay? So, you know where the highest crime in the world is? South Africa. In South Africa, you know what they have? They have people at the bottom of the hill living in cardboard boxes, looking up the hill at gated communities. All right? It is the most extreme inequality in the world. You have the most crime in the world. In the United States, if you look at this notion of inequality, the worst place for inequality is Louisiana. That is the place that has the highest difference between the rich and the poor. Right? Look at Canada. Them damn socialists. Them socialists are equal and they don't die. Oh my God. There's something to be said for socialism right there. And so look at that. Having a lot of inequality leads to the highest rates of death. Okay? All right. I don't care. Oh, locus of control. And here's another one that's strongly related to clinical depression. And that is this notion of locus of control is this belief about how much the outcomes in our lives are a function of our behaviors. In some ways, it's good to have this internal locus of control where you believe the outcomes in your life are the result of things that you're in charge of. But this means, however, if you have a really strong internal locus of control, if bad crap happens to you, you're going to blame yourself. Right? Because I'm in charge and bad shit happened, therefore I should have done more. If you have a strong external locus of control, then you believe that your fate is a result of things that are outside of your ability to control. And so, if I'm failing and I have an external locus, why bother trying? Because clearly it's not what I do that controls my outcomes, it's out there. So clearly, both a strong internal or external are unhealthy for us in different ways. Okay? So we find, by the way, people with clinical depression tend to have very high external locus of control. Okay? Social support, I already talked about the social support thing. It's healthy, live longer. Even pets, by the way. Pets are awesome. In fact, one of the roles I play is faculty advisor for PsyChi. PsyChi is the Honor Society for Psychology. And one of our annual, every semester events is we work with a nonprofit organization called Paws Across Texas. And Paws Across Texas, they have therapy dogs. They're trained therapy dogs that are brought into different hospital settings because research has clearly shown that patients that are exposed to therapy animals have better health outcomes. Okay? So we partner with them because PsyChi, we do some fundraising, and in fact we fundraise and then we try to start to donate some of our fundraising to certain organizations, and they had so many hurdles, in order to give them money, you have to go through all of these steps and all of this crap. And so we're like, you know what? Paws Across Texas is it doesn't take a lot of money to run this organization, right? And it's local, so we're able to just literally give them a check. They put it into their coffers. I mean, it makes an impact. I mean, I think we give them most of their funding, and I'm thrilled to do that. Okay? I'm thrilled that we can do that and have an effect. Well, they come to Wesleyan every year, every semester. Usually it's, last semester it was the Tuesday before finals, right? That one day. And so students are invited to come in and say, was at the library last time and pet the puppies. All right, they got a little voluntary donation bucket. No need to, because Sci-Fi's going to donate our chunk of money. And you pet the puppies, and it's cute to watch y'all just collapsing puppy love. All right, it's very sweet. Okay, so absolutely, access to pets. In fact, my dean one time, I was having some kind of a meeting with him, video conference. He was all stressed out about something, and so I ended the meeting with go pet a puppy. Right? I don't know if he did, but he thought it was a pretty good ending. All right. Look at this. People with social support. Look at that. High social support. And we can see at that point when we might perhaps need high social support the most, did not. Okay. Become optimistic. Get social support. Yeah. Interesting. Oh, I don't know about that. Well, here was a study where what they did was they measured people's depression scores. Okay, so they found a group, some people, and here was their depression scores. And then what they did was they had no treatment group, and so all of a sudden you see what happened is after their depression score did not change. One group, they taught them some relaxation, all right, something like that. And it had an effect. But here's a third group where they did aerobic exercise. Look at that. Look what aerobic exercise did to the depression scores. So clearly there is some things we can do. Okay? Relaxation, modification, more time relaxing. In fact, my stupid watch, like 10 times a day, it says, time to take a breath for a minute. Did anybody get that update on their watch? Oh, God. This is where it comes from, okay? This is exactly where it comes from. Okay? So, what's stressful is trying to figure out how to turn that thing off. All right, here's another interesting one, biofeedback. So, they took people that had hypertension, okay? So, their muscles are chronically in this state of tenseness. And what they did was they hooked up, look at this, this apparatus is designed to record the tensing of the muscles. And so what's going to happen is it shows right here a visual display. And so in some kind of a way, if you're under a lot of hypertension, the needle would be on the far right, and if you're nice and relaxed, it's on the left. Okay? And so they tell people, your job is to move the needle to the left. What? I don't, just think about it, watch the needle, see what happens. And lo and behold, people can. They can, and I don't know what they're doing. And they move it all the way to the left. Awesome. Now take them off the machine and say, do it again. I don't know how. I can't do it. Without this little visual cue, people don't know how to make that internal relaxed state. But with a little visual cue, so nowadays they do sell devices to read this stuff, to give you a visual input. And so I've seen a little finger one that gives you a little visual readout that shows you when you are here, or when you moved it over to the left there, so that you can use it yourself 3 times a day to actually not just, make sure it's working. I like it. So I like this one, okay? This is basically how much healthier you are, right? If you don't smoke, it really helps you live longer, okay? That's the key here. If you exercise regularly, yeah, that helps you too, pretty good. If you go to church weekly, it's even bigger. Going to church weekly? What the heck is that? Or here, look at this. Religious attendance and life expectancy. People that never go to church live about 75 years, less than once a week, about 80, weekly, 82, more than weekly, 83. And so it's time for a terrible joke. Why do people live longer if they go to church more? God loves. Right? You know what it is? God loves him more. I'm like, oh shit. All right. You never make that kind of a joke. That gets you in trouble. So, I suspect it's got nothing to do with God loving you. I suspect it's the fact that people that go to church often have a tight social group. Okay? If you look at my wife's friends, she's got lots of friends, all ajimas. They all come from the church, right? They are all church people. So, it is what it is. So, there is perhaps this question, though, why is religious involvement lead to better health? And like we said, number one, a big one is social support, okay? But also, in a religious community, they tend to promote healthy behaviors, tend to promote them. That's not to say that they do, but religious involvement also tends to lead to more positive emotions, hope, optimism, things of this nature that can reduce stress. So this relationship between religious involvement and health could perhaps be a combination of all three of these at the same time. But I found in one research study I did a different connection, and I found people that attend church on a regular basis, what they have is a longer time horizon. That is, when you ask them, how far in the future do you think? People that go to church more, because people that go to church more tend to believe in an afterlife. If you believe in an afterlife, then the behaviors, the consequences for behaviors go past your own death, right? If you do bad things now, you pay for it even after your death. So I found that people that attend church tend to just think about a larger quantity of time when they make their choices. Therefore, they make healthier or more self-regulated choices. So, that's just different. Here's another one. People had heart attacks. Okay? And in the control patients, this orange line, they gave them the traditional things. Oh, you need to exercise more, you need to reduce the salt, just normal things. And fairly predictably, when you followed up on them, here is the percent that had another heart attack. In this control, or in this lifestyle modification group, after having a heart attack, they then, all right, yeah, control your salt intake, exercise more. But you know what? They started to talk about that type A versus type B lifestyle thing, okay? So, it's that type A, that anger, that persistent impatience that you're exhibiting, that may be what's leading to your illnesses. So you need to take time when you find yourself being impatient and angry to turn and think about, is it important? Okay? So let's modify your lifestyle a little bit. Let's shift it down from type A to type B. Look at that. Okay? So change your diet, change the way you think. All right? Wow. So, as a somewhat larger event, or shit happens, we appraise it as either a challenge or a threat. This can combine with a type A or a type B personality, which then combines with personal habits, stuff we do, social support, and life events' tendency towards health or illness is a function of all these different events or elements in between. Okay? That's good. I like it. Yeah, happiness is, feel good. The feel good, do good phenomenon, this is actually pretty interesting. In psychology, it's the biggest effect. It's just like, if people are happy, they're healthy. All right? And it does not matter why they're happy, and it does not matter what you mean by healthy. It's just absolutely irrelevant. If people are happy, they are healthy. It's just a powerful, powerful finding. Oh, man, is that powerful. Well, yeah, daily moods are definitely temporary, all right? As a rule, I am a happy person, all But as a rule, I am a very optimistic person. I look at the bright side as a rule. But absolutely, there are certain days where I'm not a happy person. But guess what tends to happen on days when bad stuff happens? The day after, I tend to bounce right back. Okay? So we find that we can look at temporary happiness, but what happens is like Christopher Reeve. All right, he was the original Superman in the movies in the 70s. Anyway, Christopher Reeve, he fell off of a horse and broke his neck, and so he was paralyzed from the neck down, so he was completely a quadriplegic, right? And he was interviewed after his accident, and he's just, oh my God, my life is over. I can't even imagine any future. It was horrible. Then they interviewed him a year later, and he goes, my life has never been better than this. I mean, I was always so busy, I never stopped to look around me. I never watched the sunrise before, right? I never just stopped and enjoyed the present moment, because I was always on the go. And so he went within a 1 year period from this tragedy is the end of everything to I can't believe how great life is. Okay? Same thing happens, by the way, with somebody who wins the lottery. They win the lottery and you ask them, what do you think this is going to do for you? Oh my God, I'm going to be ecstatic forever. A year later, they're right back where they started before they won the lottery. All right? Their happiness just went boom, just like that. Okay? So we find happiness, look at this, over the course of a week. What's the worst day of the week? Wednesday. Nobody likes Wednesday. I wonder what the effect is of having a 4-day school week. I wonder if that changes it. Or maybe Tuesday's a little point. Who knows? Okay, look at that. Fridays are awesome. Saturdays less. Sundays I'm starting to dread. Boom. Down we go. We also find over the course of a day that if you measure people from the time since they awoke, what am I, about 7 hours after waking up, so I guess if you got to ask somebody for a favor, figure out when they woke up, add 7 hours ago for the favor, right? That's what you got to do. Take advantage of it. There it is. Okay? This is somewhat frightening. So they took first year freshmen, and they started asking this question. So, you know, you're going to the university now, so we got to kind of think about your long-term goals. And what, you know, is it important to be very well off financially? And is it important to develop a meaningful philosophy of life? And you can see back here in the mid-60s, people were pretty solid. Look, you know what? I mean, I'm going to college, and the whole point is to find my purpose, to find my calling, to figure out what I'm supposed to do in this world. Yeah, I'm not stupid. I need money, okay? But to find my purpose, look at this. All right? This is difficult. This is difficult because sometimes students now, they think, you know, we as a university, we're supposed to be doing career preparation so that they can make more money. And it's like, no, our job is to give you a skill set that you can use to succeed at any job. That's our goal, right? If you wanted a very specific, then you ought to have gone to a technical school and learned to be an auto mechanic, which is a fine thing to do, but don't come in this room and think we're going to teach you a very specific skill set. That is not the goal of the university, right? Our job is to give you the tools necessary to find your purpose in life. Yeah, that makes it harder. Here's a graph that was always confusing to read. But basically what it says is they ask people, how important is money in your life? And how satisfied are you? So people that said, money is very important to me, said, I am not satisfied with my life. People that said, love is very important to me, were very satisfied with your life. You get it? Pretty powerful finding right there. And I just had this conversation with my daughter who's about to be a freshman in college, and she's making her, and she's trying to think about how she can make more money than me. And I'm like, my mistake was she saw my taxes because she had to fill out a FAFSA. You know, the FAFSA, so she now knows how much money I make. Okay? And she goes, you got a PhD and you make that kind of money? And I'm like, develop a meaningful philosophy of life. I don't know how I'm going to convince her that there's far more to this world than making more money. But as a society, I find it offensive that, on the internet, it's pretty common. You find college majors with the lowest, what they call ROI, return on investment. Okay? And when they calculate this thing, they're literally being like, how much does it cost to go to college? How many years of income does it take to pay for that expenditure? Inevitably, what always falls at the bottom is social services. All right, psychology majors, sociology majors. It always falls at the top, business majors. All right, and it's like, let's see, business majors, social science majors. All right, social services majors. Which one do you think is going to be happy 10 years from now? Business majors, social science majors. All right, I'm just saying, okay? I guarantee you I have passed some very lucrative positions in my life. I have colleagues that have the exact same education as me, that are making way more money than me, and they are not happy. Okay? They are not happy doing so. And I try to convince my daughter, I got a PhD and that's my income, but girl, I only work like 8 months out of the year. Okay, I got 3 months off for summer, I got another month for Christmas. Now you look at who's smart, huh? You know I can defeat a 17-year-old, right? Not a stubborn man. Okay, so here we go. They then looked at, here is from the 50s up to 2010 or so, here's personal income. Okay, it's shooting up, absolutely. Okay, we have far more money than we ever used to. Here is people that say they're very happy. Does money buy happiness? No. Now, what I have found is this question, does money buy happiness? And, the reflexive answer is to say no. I mean, look at that. Money doesn't buy happiness. But I've actually seen some interesting analyses that said it depends on how you spend that money. Okay? If you spend it to buy another flat screen television or the latest model of the iPhone, you're just chasing an endless desire that's never going to be fulfilled. Okay? And therefore, money will never buy happiness. But if you use money to buy experiences like vacations, then, or even better, you know how you can raise your happiness with money? Use your money to pay somebody else to do the bullshit chores in your life. All right? Honest to God, that's the answer. Money buys happiness by shoving it off on somebody else. It's a true outcome, just not what I ought to advertise, okay? Yeah. I already said that idea. This adaptation level phenomenon, like our happiness, is always compared to what we've been at lately. And so, like I may have said, when I first moved to Texas and I bought a house, it was better than anything I could have ever imagined in my life. Better than anything I could have even dreamed of. And after living there for about 5 years, it was all of a sudden a piece of shit. And it's like, it's the same house, what happened? You just sort of adjust to it. You compare yourself, because at that point I was comparing myself to the shitty apartment that we had before this. You know what I mean? When you compare it to that apartment, this is a mansion. After living there for 5 years, I stayed there 15 years. So, I already said the relative deprivation, it's not just being poor, it's seeing others around you as poor. All right, so we have time now, and I have a captive audience. Y'all have been getting them emails about the student evaluations. Y'all been getting those, okay? So, number one, you all get extra credit if a set percentage of you complete it. Because these things are anonymous. I cannot and do not want to know who has, in fact, completed these things, right? They are anonymous, therefore, feel free to write, he dresses poorly. I'll take it. I don't care. Right? Whoever you want. These student evaluations are used as part of the annual evaluation of faculty. All right? Faculty get a grade too, you know that, right? We get a grade, and I feel bad for the dean, because the dean has to somehow grade and consider like a music professor and a psychology professor and somehow compare them. It's pretty radically different, you know, it's pretty rough to do. Well, these student evaluations are one way that we can make cross-departmental comparisons of some kind. We'll see what happened is last year, we had a student evaluation system for years. It was well established, it was normed, I mean, you knew your percentiles, right? So the university, in order to save a couple of bucks, they moved to a cheaper system, okay? And last fall, we got all of our faculty evaluations, and we realized there was nothing, we were just getting a number. Oh, you got a 4.2. What does that mean? I had absolutely no way to compare that to anything. It was such a question. Oh my God, they dropped the ball. All right, but we're working with it. We're working with it. So, if y'all can get the number, I don't remember the number written in the syllabus. I want to say 85% here, 90% here. I don't remember. It's in there. Y'all get extra credit if the percent is higher. Okay? So, I am supposed to be leaving you a loan to do so. Y'all got phones and emails, and you know what I'm talking about. Yes? Okay. Okay. So now is your chance to pull it out, get it done on our class time, okay? If you have already done it, feel free to leave, okay? But please take the time to do so. I do actually read them and use that input. In fact, one of the things I was asked to do at my last annual report was to look at the highest score and the lowest score and discuss why I got them. All right? You know what my lowest score was? Was from my statistics class to the question, this course has created interest in the subject matter. It was like, no, I ain't selling those stats. I'm trying, but can't sell everything. So please pull those out and fill them in for everyone's benefit.